For a drink that's rumored to have deer's blood in it, Jägermeister sure does have a weird history. Jägermeister wasn't always meant to be the life of the party. At one point, it was even considered to give life. In this video, we'll be taking you through Jägermeister's complicated journey, detailing all its ups and downs. Stick around until the end of the video, and you might find a newfound appreciation for this wonderful drink. The hunt begins. We begin in a small German town by the name of Wolfenbüttel, Germany. It's here that Jägermeister would find its roots in the most unconventional of places, a vinegar factory owned by Wilhelm Mast. At the time, vinegar was a booming product, but Wilhelm wanted to expand his horizons. Eventually, Wilhelm put wine on his list of products just because it had a very similar production process to vinegar. Sadly, this wine would soon turn sour as the business fell into great debt. Eventually, Wilhelm would break under the pressure of debt and step down, handing his company over to Kurt Mast in 1918. Kurt was the breath of fresh air that the company needed after so long, immediately choosing to cut vinegar from their production line and focus solely on wine and liquor production. Kurt was a man with a vision. He wanted to change the drinking game and pave the way for his own brand of liquor, something only he could replicate. And so, he researched, experimented recipe after recipe of possible drinks until he was satisfied. After months of experimentation, Kurt eventually landed on a recipe that he enjoyed, and thus Jägermeister was born. Jägermeister, or Master of the Hunt in English, is composed of 56 different herbs, fruits, roots, and spices, a number that would make Colonel Sanders blush. Jägermeister's flavor profile can only be described as a complex and bold herbal liqueur with a slightly sweet, bitter, and spicy taste profile. This was then packed into its iconic green bottle and stamped with the even more iconic logo of a stag with a cross between its antlers. This imagery was inspired by Saint Hubertus, the patron saint of hunters, and it reflects the liqueur's connection to hunting traditions. Sadly, something sinister was coming around the corner. In the trenches. As painful as it is to admit, World War II has definitely left a sour mark on world history. During World War II, Jägermeister, like many other products and industries, faced challenges due to the war's impact on resources, production, and distribution. Supply lines were cut, and most of the 56 herbs and spices needed to create Jägermeister became scarce. Not to mention the challenge of maintaining multiple distilleries during a war. Things began to look quite bleak for Jägermeister, but Kurt Mast was determined to make the company afloat by adapting to the needs of the customers that he could reach. Jägermeister continued production throughout the war and eventually found itself in the most unusual of niches: medicine. Obviously, medicine and treatment for any ailments were quick to sell out during a war. Jägermeister, boasting its blend of herbs, began to be seen as a miracle elixir by the masses. Theorized to be a catch-all drink that can cure any ailment you feel. People would drink it when they had headaches, stomach problems, and it even found its way to the frontline trenches as an anesthetic for wounds, and Kurt Mast was too happy to dispel their beliefs. But the war had to end at some point, and Kurt Mast wanted to hit the ground running. Jägermeister continued its production and marketing efforts. The company worked to rebuild and expand its presence domestically, steering away from its medicinal phase. The company would begin negotiating with European sports teams for sponsorships, paying to have their iconic stag logo to be placed on jerseys and on home fields. But domestic success wasn't enough for Kurt Mast. He wanted to explore international trade, and this journey would eventually lead him to a dive bar in New York City, Jäger Rush. At this point, Jägermeisters were found hidden away in a few select dive bars around America. This was due to the fact that the recommended serving temperature for Jägermeister was set at a chilly -18 degrees Celsius, meaning the drinks had to be stored in a freezer behind the counter, instead of being displayed in all its green bottled glory. Only curious Various liquor connoisseurs would ask for this German drink, and luckily for Jägermeister, Sidney Frank was one of those connoisseurs. Sidney Frank is a marketing genius when it comes to the alcohol business, reviving and streamlining alcohol production wherever he's assigned. And after years of hard work and dedication, Sidney was thrown out of the company for no apparent reason. What a cruel corporate world. Down and out with a family to feed, Sidney Frank found himself in a New York bar. Tired of the same old drinks, Sidney would ask for a shot of Jägermeister that instantly changed his life. It was love at first taste, a layer of flavors that was refreshingly cold yet went down warm. Sidney immediately saw an opportunity of a lifetime. He immediately booked a flight and set a meeting with Jägermeister's CEO, Walter Sandvoss. After some tough negotiation, Sidney eventually landed a deal that would allow him to distribute Jägermeister under Sidney Frank Importing Company. Though he was only allowed to sell and distribute Jägermeister to bars around the East Coast, his tenacity and work ethic would make it obvious that he was head and shoulders above any of the other distributors of Jägermeister. Eventually, Sidney Frank would take over the entire distribution operations of Jägermeister in America, all the while making sure that the company that kicked him out knew that it was also him stealing their customers away. And as impressive as this wasn't even the peak of Jägermeister's popularity. Stag Party. The year is 1985. Business is booming for Sidney Frank as he rides on the back of Jägermeister's fame. One day, as he's enjoying the luxuries that his hard work has earned him, he sees an article from Baton Rouge talking about Jägermeister's popularity among college kids in Louisiana. This came to a shock to Sidney Frank because prior to this, he had only seen Jägermeister as a brand that only liquor connoisseurs with an acquired taste could enjoy. Sidney Frank immediately sniffed out the opportunity and went on a road trip to Louisiana, where he would staple as many copies of the Baton Rouge article to as many college bars as he could. Unsurprisingly, Sidney Frank's intuition was correct and sales rose. This prompted Sidney Frank to pivot the entire brand from a classy drink to a party starter. The brand engaged in creative and innovative marketing strategies, targeting younger audiences and associating itself with the nightlife and music scenes. The Jägerettes and Jägers were soon introduced, scantily clad men and women infiltrating party scenes with one goal in mind: to flirt with customers and get them to buy as much Jägermeister as they could. Soon enough, Jägermeister became associated with nightlife events, music festivals, and other large-scale parties. One of Jägermeister's most important contributions to the party scene was the introduction of the Jäger bomb. The Jäger bomb, also known as a Jäger shot, involves dropping a shot of Jägermeister into a glass of energy drink, creating a mix that's consumed in one go. Although the origin of the Jäger bomb has been widely contested, I think it's safe to assume that whoever started this trend wouldn't even have been able to remember what happened. Oh, to be young again. Jäger Now. No one, not even companies, could ever stand against the tidal waves of time. Soon, the people who partied with Jäger bombs would grow up, and eventually Jägermeister had to grow up with them as well. In 2015, Jägermeister bought out the entirety of Sidney Frank Importing Company to take control of distribution in America, doing away with the party image and going back to its roots as a classy drink, the type of drink that Sidney Frank fell in love with in the first place. Jägermeister's brand identity backpedaled, going back to sleek designs and unique drinks while embracing modernity. Jägermeister continued expanding its product line to include experimental drinks, such as the Jägermeister Manifest, Jägermeister Cold Brew, and even a spicy alternative called the Jägermeister Scharf. While Jägermeister's party image remains, the brand has expanded its positioning to appeal to a wider range of occasions. This includes promoting the drink as suitable for enjoying after a meal or in more relaxed social settings. Jägermeister has also taken steps to demonstrate its commitment to sustainability. This includes efforts to reduce environmental impact and promote responsible consumption. So, now that the days of Jägermeister being viewed as a healing tonic have passed, perhaps it still has a hand in healing more internal wounds that are best enjoyed with friends.